Good evening. I would like to call the January 25th, 2016 Bellbrook City Council meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Greenwood?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Here.
Mrs. Seeger-Lawson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schweller?
Here.
Mayor Baird?
Here. Formal approval of City Council executive session regular meeting minutes of the January 11th, 2016 meetings. Does any member on council have any corrections or additions to the regular City Council meeting minutes of the last meeting?
None, Mayor.
Seeing none, the minutes are approved as written. Mayor's announcements and special guests of oath of office. We have a few this evening. So we're going to start this evening with swearing in Donna Gibson to the Historical Museum Board of Trustees, Janice Stratus, Historical Museum Board, and Sharon Schroeder, Board of Zoning Appeals. So if you three would like to come up here, we will swear you guys in. First, we'd like to thank all of you for volunteering. The boards are very important. So thank you very much. Thank you. Now let's see. Sharon, you're on top. You want to come over here? And raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sharon Schroeder,
I, Sharon Schroeder,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Ohio,
of the State of Ohio,
and will obey
and will obey
the laws thereof,
the laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
uphold and enforce
uphold and enforce
the provisions
the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of Bellbrook,
of Bellbrook,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of
the duties of
the office upon
the office upon
which I'm about to enter.
which I'm about to enter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I just need that signature. Thank you very much. And Janice? Please raise your right hand. I, Janice Stratus,
I, Janice Stratus,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Ohio,
of the State of Ohio,
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
thereof,
thereof,
and that I will,
and will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
uphold and enforce
uphold and enforce
the provisions of the Charter
the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances of Bellbrook,
and ordinances of Bellbrook,
and will faithfully discharge
faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Gibson.
Dawn.
I, Donna Gibson,
I, Donna Gibson,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Ohio,
of the State of Ohio,
and will obey
and will obey
the laws thereof,
the laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
uphold and enforce
uphold and enforce
the provisions
the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of Bellbrook,
of Bellbrook,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office upon
the duties of the office upon
which I'm about to enter.
which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Now, would like to thank you all very much for volunteering, and I'm sure we'll be scheduling meetings not that far in the future. So thank you all very much. And that is all we have for mayor's announcements this evening. We have introduction of ordinances. Ordinance number 2016-1. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 2016-1, an ordinance amending certain sections of the City of Bellbrook zoning code. Whereas the City of Bellbrook zoning staff routinely identifies sections of the zoning code that should be clarified, updated, and/or completely changed. And whereas the city staff recommended a series of such amendments to the Bellbrook Planning Board, which then conducted a public hearing on those amendments on January 13th, 2016. And whereas the Bellbrook Planning Board unanimously approved the amendments and recommend adoption by City Council. And whereas all amendments to the zoning code must be approved by ordinance, now therefore the City of Bellbrook hereby ordains, Section 1, that the following amendments to the Bellbrook zoning code be approved with the deletions shown by brackets and the strike-throughs and additions shown by italics and underline. I'm not going to read all of the changes. There's copies of the changes that will be available at the city offices. Right now, I'm just going to read the articles in which changes are going to be made, and if anyone cares to look at them later, they certainly can. We will go over it in more detail at the public hearing next month or next meeting.
Yes, correct.
Changes are going to take place in Article 3, construction of language and definitions. Article 14, Bellbrook Village Plan. Article 17, Plan Development. Article 18, General Provisions. Article 19, Enforcement and Penalties. And I think that's all the changes in the different sections. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period provided by law.
Yes, these changes were recommended by the planning board to city council. They met on January 13th and reviewed these. The public hearing will be held at the February 8th council meeting. At that time, prior to the public hearing, I will have a detailed explanation of the changes that are proposed. Just to note, there was one change regarding transient rentals that was recommended by the planning board that's not included in this. After that meeting, after some of the discussion that occurred, I went back to the municipal attorney. We had some further discussion. She is going to continue to sort of modify that language. It'll go back to the planning board again for their review and then come to you at a future time. But at this time, those rental regulations are not included in this amendment.
And you may explain what a transient resident is.
A transient rental is anyone who rents their property for, as defined currently, less than 25 days. So if it's an Airbnb property or a VRBO property that is being rented for less than 25 days, it would potentially fall under these changes that are being proposed. So we've had some complaints from residents that live next door to these properties, and so we're looking at some options to address that issue.
What kind of complaints did you have, Mark?
On that one, we had complaints about loud parties, people that were not, people that rented the property that did not have, respect the rights of the property owners around them. So we had, the police were called in some cases, but not in all cases. But it just, people that were there that don't have the same interest because they're not property owners in that neighborhood, so they may be there for a shorter period of time, and the rest of the people around them are residents that live there, and that's their investment.
What's normally done? Does a company buy one of these houses and do that?
No, well, I mean, in this case, I think it's just somebody who bought the house. I don't know what their situation is, why they're renting it. I don't know if they live there. Anyone can do it. I mean, you can do it whether it's your whole house. You can do it for a room in your house if you want. So anyone here that has property could rent out a portion of it. So I don't know the specifics of their situation, why they chose to do it. If they bought it as a rental property and maybe they couldn't get a long-term rental, so they decided to go with a short-term rental. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
And that's not in this ordinance,
No.
so it's left
Right, I
out.
would just-
So.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll have a lot more discussions about that as we get closer. But again, the municipal attorney is sort of working on that language to finalize it to make sure we have everything in order before we bring it to council.
Okay.
Any other questions on ordinance number 2016-1 as before we introduce it?
Under enforcement of penalties, you added where there was an addition of civil penalties.
Correct.
I'd kind of read that as the zoning department can go get tickets. Is that kind of,
Effectively, yeah, I mean, it's a citation that we don't have to go through the criminal court to prosecute. So what we find with zoning violations, going through the Xenia Municipal Court, through the prosecutor, that's not always one of their higher priorities in terms of the cases, and there's a lot of documentation that we have to prepare and things like that. So what we're hoping is that by having the ability to add a civil penalty rather than going through a criminal prosecution, maybe we can get somebody to comply because they don't want to have to pay a fine, effectively is what it is. It's similar like, a traffic ticket, you go to the Xenia Municipal Court, but for a parking ticket, you come here and you pay your parking ticket to us directly. You don't have to go to court for that. So it's sort of that thing. It's just another tool for us to use to try to get enforcement of some of these things.
but a person, if they get a ticket, they can go to court, right? They can contest it?
Yes, there is a way to contest it. I mean, obviously, the easiest thing is we want them to remedy the zoning violation, is what we want them to do.
Sort of a last resort.
Yeah, I was just wanting to make sure I understand the mechanics of it.
Yes. Yeah, so they have an appeal process that they can go through, but it's just a different way for us to try to get somebody's attention to take care of an issue that we've already notified them of along the way.
Once you're put in the court process, it can be somewhat arduous also, not just for us, but the resident as well. Because at that point, it's potentially criminal and all those other things can potentially go wrong if you don't show up for court.
All right, with a civil, it's not on a record.
Yeah.
Right.
Go through the court, it's on your record.
Yes, it is. Once it's filed, it's on your record, even if you never, if it's dismissed, it's still out there unless you expunge it. So this is an introduction to ordinances. Any other questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to introduce ordinance number 2016-1.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 2016-1.
May I have a second?
Second?
Roll call. I think so. Yeah.
Motion by Mr. Edwards to introduce ordinance number 2016-1, an ordinance amending certain sections of the City of Bellbrook zoning code, seconded by Mr. Martin. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
Yes. So that was an introduction, and we will have the public hearing at the next meeting. We have 3 resolutions this evening. Resolution 2016-D. Mr. Greenwood.
Yes, Mayor. Resolution number 2016-D, a resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of weed and grass mowing on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereunto. Whereas the City of Bellbrook, following all applicable procedures contained in the Bellbrook Municipal Code, caused overgrown grass and weeds to be cut on properties located in the City of Bellbrook. And whereas Bellbrook Municipal Code, Section 678.03, Index B, authorizes the delinquent cost of such action to be certified to the Greene County Auditor to be entered upon the tax duplicate. And whereas the collection of such delinquent costs are in the best interest of the city and its citizens. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the costs that have been incurred for the mowing of grass and weeds that have not been paid by the property owners is $831.25. Section 2, that the costs incurred shall be entered on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereunto. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
Yes, actually, this resolution and the next 2 are all similar. They're passing assessments on to the Greene County Auditor. This first one is for weed and grass mowing. There are 4 properties listed that had to have their grass cut by the city sometime after August 1st. We usually do this at the August meeting so that they can be assessed to the property taxes. They have to be in by the 2nd Monday of September, so that they can be included on in this case, they'd have been included on the 2015 tax bill that was paid in 2016. What we're doing now is, we'll probably do it now twice a year. These won't show up until the 2017 tax bills, but the intent is that will be on record at the county auditor. If the property changes hands in the meantime, these assessments should be paid as part of that process. Where we found it particularly on the mowing is because, we continue mowing past August, obviously, but then if we don't assess them until the next August, there were people that the properties did change hands and we weren't able to get that money. So now these 4 properties, anything that was mowed in 2015 and it was not paid will now have been assessed, and until we start mowing again in 2016, they'll all be covered.
Mark, 2 questions. How are these amounts arrived at, and do the owners get, do we send them a bill or anything before we do this?
We send them multiple bills.
Okay.
And then council has set rates, at one, I think we set them earlier, in 2015 around this time. There's an administrative charge, and then there's a per hour charge.
Gotcha.
Based on the amount of time that we spend there, that the service department spends there. So, that's all been done. We've sent them multiple invoices. They've not responded. This is our last resort.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for our city manager? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt resolution 2016-D?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 216-D.
May I have a second?
I second it.
Roll call.
Motion by Mr. Greenwood to adopt Resolution 2016-D, a resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of weed and grass mowing on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Seconded by Mrs. Middlestetter. Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
Yes. Moving on, resolution 2016-E. Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 2016-E, a resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of unpaid water bills on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Whereas, the City of Bellbrook, following all applicable procedures contained in the Bellbrook Municipal Code, invoiced customers for providing water to properties located in the City of Bellbrook's water system area, and whereas Bellbrook Municipal Code Section 1042.05 authorizes unpaid water bills to be certified to the Greene County Auditor to be entered upon the tax duplicate, and whereas the collection of such delinquent costs are in the best interest of the city and its citizens. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the costs that have been incurred for providing water that have not been paid by the property owners is $295.73. Section 2, that the costs incurred shall be entered on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
Yes, similar to the last one, this is for unpaid water bills. There's 2 properties. Both of these were rentals where the tenant moved out without paying their final bill. Obviously, the owner still has responsibility for that bill per our code. We allow the new tenant to come in and have water. I know some communities would not turn the water on until this bill was paid. We allow the new tenant to come in and have water. If it's ultimately not paid, we'll assess it to the property, and then the owner of the property can do whatever they can to get it from their former tenant.
Mark, you're saying, I guess a tenant rents a place and they're responsible for paying a water bill. Is that kind of what?
Right, depending on the situation. In these cases, yes, that's what it was. There was a tenant that rented these properties from the owners, and in that case, they were responsible for paying the bill, and they did not pay the final bill, and they left, so now it falls back to the property owner. In some cases, the property owners pay the bill directly to us, and then, factor that into the rent payment or something like that. But in these cases, they were responsible for paying the water bill.
Is there something in our system, could a landlord request if something like that happens to get a notice?
They do.
I mean, they'd automatically get a notice?
They get multiple,
Okay.
when after the first bill is not paid, any
Okay.
future delinquent notices get copied to the property owner also.
Okay,
So they are aware of it. Sometimes they are able to get that money for us, but in some cases, they don't really help us in this matter. So this is ultimately what we do with it.
They're gonna pay it anyway.
one way or the other.
Yep. Any other questions for our city manager? May I have a motion to adopt resolution 2016-E?
Yes, Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution 2016-E.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Mrs. Middlestetter to adopt Resolution 2016-E, a resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of unpaid water bills on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Seconded by Mrs. Seeger Lawson. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
Yes. Resolution 2016-F. Mr. Edwards, I believe you may have a conflict.
Yes, I
and
have a
would like to
conflict.
recuse yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. Resolution 2016, and we'll try not to forget about you. We've done it in the past. Resolution 2016-F. Mr. Schweller.
Yes, Mayor, resolution number 2016-F, a resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of minor nuisance abatement on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Whereas the City of Bellbrook, following all applicable procedures contained in the Bellbrook Municipal Code, caused minor nuisances to be abated on properties located in the City of Bellbrook, and whereas Bellbrook Municipal Code Section 1450.12D authorizes the delinquent cost of such action to be certified to the Greene County Auditor to be entered upon the tax duplicate, and whereas the collection of such delinquent costs are in the best interest of the city and its citizens. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the costs that have been incurred for the abating of minor nuisances that have not been paid by the property owners is the amount of $762.50. Section 2, that the costs incurred shall be entered on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Finally, Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
Yes, this one is, there's just a single property. This property has been in foreclosure, actually, for a number of years. In the past, we've had to assess them for weed mowing and that. This finally got to the point, this property in particular got to the point that we needed to do more than just mowing. We went there and cleaned up the yard significantly. There's still a lot of things wrong with this property. There's a tarp on the roof that's been there for a significant amount of time. But we went in there, we trimmed honeysuckle, we cleaned up all around, we did a lot of significant stuff. We told the foreclosing bank that we were going to be doing this, the property manager for that also, we told them we were gonna do it. Gave them the option to do it, they did not do it, so we went ahead and went out and did it this fall. They have obviously since not paid that bill, so we are going to assess it to the property and we'll get it paid eventually. This property has been a nuisance for a number of years. We hope that someday somebody will just put it on the market because I'm sure it will sell. The house is in decent shape, but I don't know why they just haven't sold it yet. But it is what it is.
Where is that on Barnett?
It's,
It's on the
well, I'm trying to think from the Lakeview end. If you're starting up the street, it's on the right-hand side, probably, I don't know, 5, 6 houses
Yeah,
up the
it's
block.
not too many.
You'd recognize it when you drive by.
Okay.
just look for the brown tarp on the half of the roof.
Yeah.
You'll see it. It's on the west side of the street there.
Okay.
Any further questions for our city manager? If not, may I have a motion to adopt resolution 2016-F?
I'd like to move for the adoption of resolution 2016-F.
May I have a second?
Second it.
Roll call.
Motion by Mr. Schweller to adopt Resolution 2016-F, a resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of minor nuisance abatement on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Seconded by Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
Yes. Horace?
I'll grab him.
Yep, there he is.
Nick's back. As if on cue.
Moving on through the agenda this evening, city manager's report.
Yes, as we like to do after the new year starts, there's a couple different things, sort of a recap for 2015 that we'd like to go through and share with council and all the viewers out there, and tonight the Girl Scouts too. So, Look, the first one, first section here is on waste collection within the city. So for 2015, this is a breakdown of the waste collection and recycling statistics. So right now, about 79% of what we put out to the curb goes to the dump, and the other 21% is recycled. So that's if a total of 3,118 tons is what comes out of the city of Bellbrook from our residents. And just to give you some historical comparison, it's actually almost identical to what it was last year. Last year was 3,107. This year was 3,118. And there's a slight increase, but we also increased 16 households during the year. What this equates to, if you look down here at the bottom, is we average 1.23 tons of waste and recycling per household. So that's what on average every household generates per year. And we count in this 2,534 households. Those are the single-family residential ones that are collected by this. So it doesn't include commercial accounts. It doesn't include most apartments, things like that. It's just our residentials. I know last year when we talked about this, there was a question about, okay, what does this mean compared to others? So I found some statistics about how Bellbrook compares. So if you look at our average waste per household, we're actually pretty much in line. Fairborn is significantly lower. I don't know if that data is just not correct or what it is, but everyone else is actually all fairly consistent there. But the thing here is our recycling is significantly higher than most of them, with the exception of Centerville. Everyone else is less than 0.2 tons per year per household. And the other thing that I think is important for us is if you look at what the monthly service fee is to our residents, we are by far the lowest at $13. These other ones are in the $18, $15 range. Beaver Creek does not contract with anyone specific. If you're a resident, you call whoever you want and you can contract there. So their price may vary, but I would imagine that it's actually probably higher than any of these other rates here for that service. So I think for what we do for our residents, the price is obviously very competitive, and we provide a good service. Property taxes. I know the property tax bills just went out, much to people's chagrin there. But just to recap here, first, the property tax values for the city as a whole, they went up very slightly, 0.3%. So the amount that our tax revenue is based on, really an insignificant amount went up. Residential went up a little bit. Commercial industrial went down. And public utility tangible went up a little bit also. So really that's not, our property tax base itself is not growing significantly. It's not decreasing either, but it's not growing. But what everyone that got their tax bill here in the last few days knows is property taxes went up based on a couple things. So what this is a comparison and breakdown by who you're paying your taxes to and what it went up from 2015 to 2016. That assumes that the value of your property remained the same. This is on a $100,000 property. So the school district went up $125 for every $100,000 in home value. If you recall, the school district did a replacement levy. That was a 5.5 mil replacement levy, but they also took some levies off. So effectively, this is a 3.25 mil increase is what it was. But also, because they did a replacement levy, the homestead and rollback taxes are now paid by the resident rather than the state. So that's a part of the reason that went up by $125. The city, there's no change. The county went up $63. This was because there was a library levy passed, a new library levy passed for 0.9 mils, and a new Greene County Park District levy that was passed for 0.9 mils. So that is what equates to that $63. No change for the Joint Vocational School, the Bellbrook Sugar Creek Park District. The Health District was just a minor change based on the valuation there. So in total, for every $100,000, your taxes went up $187. And obviously you can extrapolate that out based on the value of your home from there. But that is the reason that those your tax bill increased. And if you have any questions or need any information, the Greene County Auditor has a lot of information on their website you can see, or you can call them and they can explain to you the calculation of your taxes if you have any questions.
So Mark, as a homeowner, when somebody says a replacement levy is no new tax, out of your pocket, that's really not accurate.
A replacement, a renewal levy would be no new tax, and it would continue to be no tax. A replacement levy
Yeah,
is not technically new tax, but it's going to increase your taxes. But
because
now
the
it's,
rollback comes off from the state.
well, it's also going to put you back to what the levy was originally valued at. So that's really what they did.
Right.
The effective rate of the levy was down from 5.5, was passed in the mid-70s.
Yeah.
It was down to about 1 mil. So prior, it used to be a replacement levy would just take that back up to 5.5 mils.
Right.
So you'd see that increase. Now that's what it does, but it also says there's 12.5% if you're in an owner-occupied home. There's 12.5% that used to be provided by the state, paid on your behalf as a resident
That's
by the
not
state.
paid anymore.
That's not paid anymore. And so that compounds the impact of that levy.
Right.
And we've talked about the impacts of, it's technically not the homestead exemption, I think it's occupancy more so when you
Right.
look at your bill. Because
Yes.
I've looked at mine, it's not on there, and I know someone else had looked at it and called and had it fixed. So it's something I'm gonna follow up with on mine, because it is important. The homestead exemption also did change for the elderly. If you're on it, it stays, but the requirements, if you apply for a new, if you did not have it before, those requirements have changed this year. But this is a big deal. If we ever want to replace a levy, it makes a whole lot more sense to do an additional levy versus replacing a new levy, because we will get the same amount of money where the residents will be paying. If we replace it, they'd be paying a lot more, and we'd get the same amount of money essentially.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Now,
just a matter of where it's coming from. Part of it's coming from the state now.
Because the state's no longer reimbursing us for that. The one thing I looked at a residence bill yesterday and went through them all, and I didn't see the school up that much. The county was up a significant amount, but Bellbrook's actually, he had the 14 bill, the 15 bill. But Bellbrook's actually had dropped about 20 or 30 bucks. And I assume that was based upon the outside millages that have now, because of increased values in the properties.
It probably, did his value change?
No, I don't believe so,
That would
but I
be
have
the-
to look.
Yeah, that would be the thing, because ours should not have changed because we didn't do anything different. And the values on total, our effective rates did not really change.
The effective rate, if the effective rates didn't change, in theory, if you have a certain amount of development, the outside millages will, the
Go
amount of
down.
your personal liability, tax liability will go down.
Right.
Okay.
But based
So
on
it
that,
would have to be his appraisal then.
based on that,
Got you.
that didn't really change too much. So I would look at the value from year to year to see if there
That's
was a
what- yeah.
change.
Nice explanation.
All right, and then finally here, we have some statistics on some of our zoning and property maintenance. So in 2015, we had a total of 135 zoning permits issued. That's this one here. Of those, there were 17 single-family residential. So over the past 3 years, we've had 47 new single-family residents, and if you look in the years before that, we probably had 10 total along there. So we had 135, most of them things like the red fences, we get a lot for that, or accessory buildings like sheds, signs, depending on the year. I know there was one year here back in 2011, we had quite a few of those, some additions, things like that. So again, we're pretty consistent in the amount of zoning permits we've issued over time. It may vary by what type, but it's fairly consistent in what it is. The next slide is on property maintenance and zoning violations. So we've had a steady increase over the years. I think this has probably come primarily from just increased enforcement, increased activity that we've put a little bit of a focus on this. The 159 property maintenance violations that we had here, a lot of those, a significant amount were for dead trees. We sent out letters and we had property asking people to take care of those. Zoning violations, as you can see, have been fairly consistent with the exception of a spike here on this year. And then the green is ones that got reported to us as violations, but they ultimately weren't a violation. So we handle them, we look at them, but then if they weren't a violation, then that we don't do anything with them. So there were 210 total in this year. Again, the significant increase in the blue is because of the dead tree letters. So those are sort of a summary of some of our statistics there. A couple other things that I have this evening. One, we received our invoice from the Greene County Regional Planning Commission for 2016 membership. I know we talked about that late last year. They proposed some bylaw changes that would increase dues. Those bylaw changes did get approved. We voted no, Yellow Springs voted no, but everyone else voted yes. So we need to make a decision as to whether we want to be a member for 2016. The 2016 membership dues would be $1,736. That amount was included in the budget. At that time, we didn't know what we were going to do. Last year, the dues were $887. So effectively, they were doubled for us. There are a couple of things. We over the years, at least since I've been here, we've not used them for a lot of things. They do help us assign street addresses and things like that. We've not used them for a lot of things. There's two specific things that we could use them for this year. When we talked about some of the goals, we want to look at the Old Village District, sort of have a review of the regulations and the direction that we want to go in the Old Village District. And the other one is a sort of a strategic plan for State Route 725 as we get additional requests to change zoning on those properties that are residential now. So they could help us with that, and we could utilize their services. So I think it might be good to renew the membership, even with the significant increase. But if we don't, we'll find another avenue to handle those projects.
The only thing with the strategic plan is that they really don't have the staff to do it themselves. They'd probably have to outsource it, and then they'd bill us for it anyway.
And some of it is, even if they could just guide us a little bit, it may not be that I'm asking them to do it, but given their experience with the planning and that type of thing, I think they could help us and guide us at least
Right, they've
there.
definitely done them before and
Right,
would know.
exactly. That's what I'm looking for, at least there is, I realize their staff is pretty short and they don't have a lot of flexibility there, but I think they could at least help us get headed in the right direction, and we could use them as a resource that we haven't done here recently.
What access do we have to Miami Valley Regional Planning?
We're a member there. We have similar access to them. They could provide some of this.
Isn't that duplicate services then?
Yes and no. I mean, Miami Valley is a lot more based on transportation-related projects. They handle the funding for transportation-related projects. They do other planning things. What was they did
The comprehensive.
comprehensive planning process. So
Yeah,
they do have
region.
Yeah, regional planning things and
Yeah, I
stuff like
remember
that.
a lot of that.
Yeah, they've done that, so they do have some of that expertise. I think just the Greene County is maybe a little bit more locally based and a little bit better understanding of what happens in Greene County, things like that.
The major roads and all the arteries are all Miami Valley Regional Planning.
And
So-
725 is a major
Yes.
road.
So
Yes.
that's
Wilmington,
Miami
Dayton Road
Valley
is
Regional
also-
Planning.
So-
And that's, the prioritization, the money, all that goes through them. Donna, I guess your opinion would really matter here since you're our representative.
Obviously I was disappointed that the fees increased. I was asking them a couple times, hey, can we just have like an associate membership that really, since we don't use all the things that they actually do on a regular basis. But that didn't go forward. I'm not opposed to continuing in the organization, but I just, I don't know. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is this an annual thing? Can we do it
Yes.
this year? And then if they don't perform, we can.
And that's sort of, I guess, where I was coming from. I can't really answer that question, but I think this will be the first time we actually have a need that we can use them for, and I think we can see how they function, and if it doesn't work, then we won't renew it.
Yep.
in
Mayor,
the
I'm
future.
with you. I mean, to me, it's like, maybe we join this year and kind of take them to task a little bit and see if
Yeah.
they really will, provide value back that we feel, equates with the level of what our dues are, and if not, maybe this is our last year.
Have they already done all the assigning of all the plats and addresses? Is that completed? Or do they have to still go back and get those assigned? The
Well-
addresses for vineyards and,
They've done the vineyards.
Highview.
Most of
They-
the other developments are in Sugar Creek.
Yeah, most of
Yeah,
it.
that's the only two.
But they'll have to do it for the remainder of Highview Terrace whenever
Highview Terrace.
How
when-
would that be done if we didn't go through them.
That's,
We'd
that's
figure
what I'm
out,
asking.
yeah, I know we've done it, there was a period of time that we did it ourselves, and it's far more complicated than one thinks that you just pick a number and assign it. It's based on, lot size and things like that. So we would probably have to hire somebody to assist us with that if it was a significant development. Highview, depending on what they do for their next phases, we might need some assistance in
Goes to
getting
the
those.
back part.
Right, getting those addresses
Yeah.
assigned, so.
Mr. Edwards?
I agree with Mr. Martin. I think that we have a need for it this year. Let's see what
See if they
what they
perform.
can do and talk about it this time next year.
And watch it closely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
I agree.
Mr. Schweller? I know,
I think if we can use it a little bit and we get some value and maybe reduce or offset some city staff time, we use them our benefit, then let's go for it. And then if we decide it's not worthwhile, then maybe next year we can do it. And then if we have projects in the following year, maybe we bunch them all up one or two every third year or
Right,
something like that,
right.
come in and out.
And they may, I think this is sort of a transition year for them. I know they were trying to, keep communities. Xenia was one that was looking to pull out. I don't know if they have officially pulled out. Beaver Creek and Fairborn pulled out years ago. So that's, the restructuring of the dues were targeted to lower their dues to allow them to maybe keep in that, but we'll see what happens with that also. We were just sort of caught in the middle between lowering their dues and then assessing some of the townships and the villages a little bit more, but then we got caught in them increasing our, it's another $800. It's not a ton of money, but it's a 100% increase.
Yeah.
Is what it
Yeah.
comes down to.
That's a
That's
big
where,
Yeah.
so,
And their
okay.
budget's
Make
growing
sure
over $25
expectations-
million this year.
Make sure our expectations of them is 100% increase too.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
It's in the budget.
It's in the budget.
So
It's,
we don't need a
I don't
motion.
think
Okay.
we do, just,
All right.
we've had the discussion. Bicentennial, we've continued to meet. Here over my shoulder is a proposed, street banner, that was approved by the Bicentennial Committee.
Louis?
We will have, about 25 of those in the Old Village District. The logo was designed by a resident. They did a contest and they came up with that, and it turns out well. We tweaked some of the putting the purple outline on the numbers to make them stand out a little bit. So a local vendor is able to provide this to us. We'll have to put new brackets on all the poles and the things, but combined with the brackets and the banner, they're $150 a piece. And the brackets obviously will stay permanently, and then we can go back. So the banner itself is only $55, and they can be printed
Great.
by a local vendor. So we can then go ahead and change that in the future. The intent is to have these banners up from about the beginning of April through the end of August, from Sugar Maple through Lions Festival is what the plan is. So we'll go forward with that. I am in conversation with DP&L right now. Obviously, they're DP&L's poles. We've had banners in the past, we've had flags on them, we have things like that, but I just want to make sure that we meet their regulations. I've sent them information to ensure that we comply with what they need. So that is that, and then the last thing I have is proposed taglines. I sent you a copy of some proposed taglines that were prepared by our consultant that created our new logo. And I guess I'm looking for some feedback. He sent these to me a week or two ago. I have not really responded to him at this point. I have my own opinion of what some of these are, but I wanted to get
Yeah.
your opinion before I
I think
responded
I'm gonna have
back.
to look at them more. I know I looked at them, but I don't think I'm gonna make,
That
I'm not gonna
really
make a
like.
decision now, huh?
But there's not any that I really.
None of them seem to jump out.
Are there any of the words that maybe, just to give some feedback, are there any words that seem to apply? I know I sort of.
Charm is the only one that jumps out at me, probably.
Live better, live here, I liked that one a little bit, but the other ones were kind of non-starters.
Yeah, I forgot to consult management, so I need to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't
See
like
what
any
the
of the
wife
sweet
says.
ones.
Yeah,
The sweet
no,
was,
no.
no, no.
Yeah.
And the heart and the charm kind of, I don't know.
Do we need a tagline?
Well, that's, I guess
That
that's.
was our contract though, wasn't it?
It is, but.
Some more work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a couple different directions we can go. I mean, obviously, a tagline we can use. We don't have to. We've not really had a tagline before,
Right.
so we could just go ahead that Bellbrook and just move forward.
Here we
and-
are.
Here we are. Take us as we are, and or I mean, the thought in my mind for something like this is, on you see them on entrance signs and things like that. I mean, it's sort of obviously it's tagline, but do we, I guess the first question is, do we need it? And the
I
second-
like the idea of one, I just, none of
Not-
these
not
like
these, but,
completely
yeah.
jumped off the page at me.
I think he just needs to do a little bit more work, maybe getting some better descriptives of the city and come back to us. I mean, at the end of the day, we may not want a tagline, but I just don't see anything here that stands out. And
Yeah.
it's his first pass, so let's look at it in more detail.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, I will get back in touch with him, and like we did with the logo, he had various iterations of that.
And Mark, we have a lot of creative people that
Well.
live here in town, including here in our audience, so,
Girl
you know, if
Scouts in
people
particular, yeah.
have a tagline that really
Yeah, let us
speaks to
know.
them, call it in, let us
3 or
know, we'll be
4
happy to talk
words.
about it.
Yeah, 3 or 4 words that describe the city, sort of.
Yes.
So here's an example. Small city, big heart, discover our charm, or.
A special place to call home, welcome to our neighborhood.
Those are some ones that we have, but we're not really sure what we want to use.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I know some of the other area, Centerville is warm and cheerful. I think Xenia is hospitality, something to do with hospitality, or so there's other communities that have those. So anyway, I will continue to work on that and get something back to you when I get it from him.
Great.
That is all I have this evening.
Any questions for our city manager this evening? Thank you very much for the tax lesson. I was curious. I was trying to pull my 14 up online. I could not find it.
Oh.
And I actually get a bill. Most people don't. 'Cause they,
Goes to their escrow.
yeah, it goes to escrow. Moving on, committee reports. Yep. Tell you service.
Service.
Just want to remind folks to try not to park on the streets when there's a snow emergency. So if the snow plows can't get past your car, then they'll probably get plowed in. So try to remember to stay off the streets when there's a snow emergency.
Safety.
Just read the report, the police report. Our officers are busy, they're doing a great job. I just noticed it looked like a lot of people drive through Bellbrook without driver's license.
A lot.
So don't drive here because they're gonna get you. And so everything's good with fire and safety, fire and police.
Finance and audit, Mr. Schweller.
Mayor had nothing to report this evening.
Financially sound we are. Community affairs.
Nothing tonight, but we are going to have lots of things coming up with the bicentennial, so keep your ears open.
Yes, indeed. Any old business on council? Any new business on council? Open discussion. Mr. Edwards?
I don't have anything tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Gibson? Or Greenwood?
I'd just like to welcome our new board
Multitasking.
members. I appreciate your service.
Yes, thank you.
That's all I have.
Mr. Martin?
Just kind of want to, I guess I'll say, plant the seed. I really like the idea of the banners and the brackets, and I think that would be something we could look at, having banners for maybe different times of the years or different events. I think that'd be a great resource to have, and I think that really could add a lot to the downtown area. So looking forward to doing that.
We have 25 poles in the downtown area. What we're going to look at is try to identify the ones that make the most sense. I don't think we have to have a banner on every pole.
Would agree.
But make the ones that make the most sense. And yes, that's what I think we can come up with some designs. Obviously, our new logo, but then as the seasons change or whatever it is, the cost of the banners themselves are actually far less than I thought they would be.
Right.
So I think it's something that we can do and not spend a lot of money on it.
Right. Agreed.
Ms. Millsar?
I should have put this under the community affairs. We are looking for 2 members on the Old Village Review Board and a member on the Museum Board. So we have several board positions that are open. Look at the website to see what the qualifications and needs are. One member of the Old Village Review needs to be a resident of the Old Village area, but the other one is not. So that's 3 openings on boards.
Ms. Siegel Lawson?
I'd just like to thank the Girl Scouts for coming out and quizzing the mayor before the meeting. Those were great questions, and it was really, really neat to see.
They typically ask what kind of dog I have.
Did they ask you that?
They did not.
Oh.
They did their
What kind of dog
homework.
do you have, Bob?
Mr. Schwaller?
Nothing really to report, but just want to thank the Girl Scouts for coming out this evening. This was the loudest Pledge of Allegiance I think I've ever witnessed in Bellbrook City Council. So these young, outstanding citizens know the Pledge of Allegiance, and for that, we're thankful to their troop leaders.
I would also concur, and they had some great questions this evening, so hopefully you guys know a little bit more on how the cities ran. Feel free to call up our city manager or myself. You can always get a hold of me.
And Bob, even though he's greatly outnumbered, we do have a Boy Scout here tonight as well.
Oh, yes, we do. I have not, yeah, I typically, come on up. Thanks. We always pick on the Boy Scouts. Please introduce yourself, and either you're working on a badge and which badge are you working on?
Hi,
Hi.
I am Corbin DeLong from Troop 375. I am working on my citizenship in the community merit badge.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for coming. We have, I think, we say this all the time, probably a record number of Eagle Scouts in our community, so it's always quite impressive, especially some of the projects they do. The only thing I have is I would like to send my condolences to the Pennywood family. Bill Pennywood passed away. Bill was a very long time resident and I believe one of the founding members of the Lions Club. I did not read the obit, so I'm thinking he was 91 years old. I think he'd recently moved out of town because he wasn't obviously in great health. So I'd like to Bill, Shelley, and that whole family, so send our condolences. He played a large part in our community, especially Pennywood Hardware, that those of us who sort of grew up around here, like me at the gas station, where I got my first hunting license and all that kind of stuff. So it's very sad, but we're all getting older. That is all I have this evening. Does anyone in our audience have anything they would like to come up and ask us this evening? If so, I don't see anyone jumping up. I see Louis, our esteemed cameraman.
I'm Louis Schatzberg. I live at 4082 Ridgetop Drive, and yes, I am a cameraman. But I think it's amazing the questions that these girls came up with and gave you your test, Bob. I think there's no way that you could have studied for that. And you handled it very well, and the Girl Scouts handled it very well as well. I always am amazed when I'm sitting in the back of the room listening how tentative you guys were, because this is where a lot of big decisions are made. And this is where you guys, as you get older, will have the biggest input, is right here. It's not in the big federal election. Yes, you do have an input, but the people that will listen to you are the people right up here that we elect to fill these positions. And we got great people that have filled these positions for many years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Louis, and it's very, very true. Well, seeing none out there, does any member on council have any other business to come before us this evening? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.